The Honourable David Parker.
I begin, sir, by giving the indication that you sought from the chair as to whether parties are seeking this as addressing this as a conscience issue. The Labor Party is addressing this bill as a conscience issue and would like the Speaker to conduct the voting accordingly, sir. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of ironies in this bill. The first is, if you're talking about responsible drinking, maybe you should have a provision in this bill that prohibits people from being on licensed premises when they're meant to be voting in this House. Mr. Speaker, the second irony is that actually this wouldn't be nearly as necessary in this country if it hadn't been for the fact that parties like the ACT Party have so undermined public broadcasting that you can't see most of these matches on public TV. It's also true, in Australia, the member, if he was really wanting to do good in New Zealand, he would have brought forward a bill here and he said the same rules should apply in respect of major sporting events on TV in New Zealand as apply in Australia. Every time there's a major sporting event like this in Australia goes up for tender, the Rugby World Cup or the like, there has to be included in the rights that are offered public television rights. Public television rights. Yes, you can have Sky having all of the rights to the paid version of the game, but you've got to have, amongst those who succeed at tender, a public option. Those people compete and they've got to pay advertising and they don't get it for free, but no, the member is so ideologically blinkered that he will never agree that New Zealanders should have the right to see the major sporting events that he gets all jingoistic and says how this is the Kiwi way and we all need to be able to watch our rugby, but he doesn't think they should be able to do it on public broadcasting in the way that happens in other countries like Australia and the United Kingdom. I think it's shameful that in this country we've got to the point where people, unless they can afford pay-to-view TV, they can't actually watch these major events on TV. Mr. Speaker, I for one will be supporting this bill to select committee. I agree it should be a conscience issue. I'm not quite sure that we should be too broad in the application of this to all sporting events. There are a lot of licensed premises that are very close to residential areas, and they do have limits and indeed when I'm in Auckland, I live 20 metres away from licensed premises and they're loud, and that's the reason why they have time limits on when they shut, because otherwise they are too disruptive of adjacent residential uses. We are thankfully past the point when we used to have a few enormous taverns which were generally in commercial areas and were separated from residential areas. It's good that we have more socially responsible drinking in smaller institutions, but we do need to take care that we get the balance right between the rights of adjacent people to have a night's sleep and the rights of those who want to have a good party. But it is good that we are, through this legislation, facilitating in respect of the forthcoming Rugby World Cup, the ability for New Zealanders to go and watch this at a public venue where they can see it on TV, because they can't see it on TV at home because of the current laws do not require a public option. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.